My name's Steve Drewson from Swansea UFO Network, and I'm here today with Emlyn and Mike from Sufon, and we've come down to Sketty Lane in Swansea to interview Mr. Howard Middleton Jones. It's Howard. Hi Howard, alright?
Hiya, how are you?
Hi Steve. Right, here we are, Singleton Hospital. So we're going to go down. Howard's going to tell us exactly where he was in 1965, when you were at what, 18?
18, 19, yeah. See, I'm trying to figure out, it could be late 64 because I saw it's being built in 63. I got a feeling it's November, around about 6.
Alright, okay.
So we'll
show us where you were?
I will show you, yeah. That was my old bedroom.
Oh, right, okay. Right. Same windows probably, is it?
Same window. That light wasn't there. We had nothing like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And bear in mind, in the 60s, this wasn't a highway like that. It was a lane, single carriageways, just enough 2 cars, and the lighting wasn't the modern lighting. There were street lamps with like 200-watt bulbs in. You could change them. So it was quite dark. Every 100 yards there was a lamp standard, but the light was like directing down. Yeah. So the Sketty Lane was very dark. And all the way down there were trees, which stopped here. And the main entrance was just by here then.
So you could tell us what this building was and why you were living there.
Right, this is the university, the original sports pavilion built in 1922 with the swimming pool next door. And that was the original gym, which is still used as a training room now. They've got the new centre set up. But my father, from 1960 for 10, 12 years, was the head groundsman here and up in Fairwood. And I lived here for about 8 years. I went to college later on. But that was my middle bedroom, and that's where I actually saw it. And I was studying for my A-levels at the time, 64, it was November. About 6:30 in the evening, dark. It was quite dark along here. We could just see occasional light. So I just happened to look out the window and I just felt something, and I could see this huge craft. Bear in mind, these trees weren't here. The woods were over there. All that over there was woods, completely covered in wood. There's no car park, it was trees, but there was a clear line. They've grown up, some of these now, you can see. So I looked out the window, and about 100 feet, say 30, 40 metres above the hospital, the size of the hospital was this very fat cigar-shaped object, with fatter in the middle and tapered off. It's just like it was hung there, it wasn't moving at all, no sound. So I just couldn't believe it. I thought it might be reflection, or it looked like a balloon, one of these, 1940s.
What about
hot
size,
air
Howard? What's the size?
Well, it was about 100 feet above the hospital and the length of the hospital, so you can work out.
So massive.
Yeah, and the width of it was the width of the 12 story or whatever they are, 9, 10 stories, that wide. So it was quite big. So I ran downstairs, and by the time I've done that, I don't know how long it's been there. It could have been a while, but we watched it for 15 minutes. And in the middle of the road, the car stopped, and some people, like probably middle-aged couple, and someone across the road was staring at it.
Just there? Right?
Yeah, it's about where the traffic lights are.
So you ran at the door?
Yeah, and it ran up here, the gate was here, and we all stood up there just watching it.
Because at the time the hospital was being built then, wasn't it?
It just finished.
The electrics were in?
The electrics were in, and I think the first patients were already in. Because as I came down to watch it, all the lights were flashing on and off on all floors. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when they were flashing those lights, it was exactly like that, but I couldn't compare that because nothing was seen in those days. So we just watched it, and then the lights started. By the way, I mentioned that Jenny, my partner, and her uncle was working in the area, remembered all those lights flashing on and off in the mid-60s. Oh, wow. He does remember that. I could get more information about that. But I think
he's working there, was he?
I think so. Yeah, I'll have to ask her. Yeah. Right. But anyway, so we watched it for another 10 or 15 minutes. We just couldn't believe what we were seeing. I think Russians were mentioned. But all of a sudden, after all that flashing had stopped, it was dead quiet. Bearing in mind, there was just no lights from this craft. It was like a silhouette, a black silhouette, and it was just hanging there as it had been painted on the sky, you know, which is it's quite awesome, really. It was just an incredible sight, you know. And all of a sudden, it started juddering, or just prior to the juddering, a little thin light, a luminous green light. I always remember this. It's quite a sight, and you always remember it. Appeared like a window in the middle of the circumference of the line of the craft. I don't know if it went all the way around because we only saw one side of it, but I presume so. So it appeared like a small little window, and all of a sudden it instantaneously stretched out like a line, a thin line, probably quite thick, I couldn't tell, but it's bright luminous green. And when it reached full capacity right around, then it juddered for about 5 seconds and then dematerialized. Disappeared right in front of our eyes, just like that. Yeah, it's gone. There's no movement, just a juddering and dematerialized. And as it materialized, you could see the dark sky, and all of a sudden, stars started to come back. There was nothing there. It's like it left a black patch for about 5 seconds.
As if it was bare, and then they started to come back into view.
Looking back on it, I think because this was built as one of the biggest buildings in Swansea at the time, pumping out quite a bit of energy. And looking back at it, I think it must have reached out and discovered this was the big energy source and materialized there. Charged up, where something must have happened to it. Used all the energy using some kind of like a Wi-Fi system, because there was no lights coming down. It was just dead energy. You could see through between the building and the craft. Right. And it must have soaked up the energy to give it like a quick battery start, you know. Okay. And then once it had charged up, it dematerialized. But the people were just standing there scratching their heads, and they shrugged their shoulders and went in the car and wandered off.
Did anyone speak about it? You know?
No, they said, well, I wonder what that was. That's, you know, and then that, you know, it's 50 odd years ago. Yeah. People don't,
and then
you know.
Nothing in the papers or anything?
Nothing, well, as far as I know. All I know is that summer, I remember hearing and reading in the Evening Post, I think it was that year, it must have been, of large fireballs seen over Town Hill in the daylight. But you can check that up. But I'll certainly ask Jenny's, her uncle's dead now, but certainly ask her about that.
Do you think it was having some effect on the electrics of the building? And then,
oh, definitely, yeah.
And after it disappeared, the electrics went back to normal?
Yeah, well, before that, they went back to normal. Obviously, when they were sucking up this direct energy, using some kind of Wi-Fi or beam system, because we know more these days now, then when they had enough, just to give it a kickstart and dematerialise. Obviously, whoever it was harnessed the idea of instantaneous, whether it was instantaneous travel or interdimensional travel, as we know now, I don't know.
Did you ever walk over to the hospital car park? We see get a better idea of how big the building is, yeah?
Yeah, sure. You remember when late 70s or something like
Star
that?
Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek. You know when they go into warp
60s.
drive and all those stars? Well, it reminded me of that because I've never seen anything like it before, so we had nothing to compare. So it looked like it'd gone into some hyper warp drive but dematerialised rather than moving. It didn't move, apart from the shudder.
It's certainly a spectacular sight. There's no doubt
but you
about
see,
that.
from the window, you could see at an angle. There's an extension on the end of this building now, I think. This is the original building, and it goes 2/3 of the way along, and I think that's an extension on the end. Yeah. But it covered the whole of the hospital, 100 foot above it, so you can imagine the size of it. I would say it's about the size of the current hospital now, in length and width, you know, because it was above it, 100 feet above it. It was about the size, I say about 100 feet, because you know the Civic Centre Guildhall clock, that's about 120 feet, and that looked like comparable the distance between the top of the building and the under the craft.
We'll we get a really good view of how big the building is.
Yes.
How long do you think that is?
Those trees and this brown brick building wasn't there then. That was built much later on. So I had a clear view from those trees weren't there either. By the traffic lights, you could see exactly. It was so near. You had to look up like that. That's how far near we were by those lights.
So you walked up to where the lights are now.
Yes.
Which was just a little lane then, wasn't
bearing in mind, it was a lane. There was only two cars.
And you were looking up at it.
Yeah.
You can see how really
vast. You could see.
How high above the building was the bottom of it?
It's about, I would say, 100 feet. So
100 feet above the building.
Yeah. As we're looking at it, would you put the building on top of it again for the bottom of that?
Yes, but it was huge. It was huge. So I got a feeling though that the last bit there is an extension.
Right.
So if you go to that, the light blue and dark blue section there, that is the original building.
Yeah.
And bear in mind the craft was about the same size, maybe a bit longer. I would say that if it had gone rested on the roof, it would have been the size of the hospital as it is now. And it would be the same width as a hospital. But I didn't see the other side.
You said it's a reconstruction that you did.
Yes, it's like a cylindrical factor in the middle, but it was curved either side.
When you say it was cylindrical, it was like a
cylindrical.
Do you think it could have been a disc viewed edged on?
No, it was too wide in the middle. It's quite wide.
Right. So it was like a cigar, was it?
Like a cigar, but very thick in the middle, wide in the middle. So it was a cylinder, but tapered off like a cigar. No sharp edges, completely round and dark. Like not quite black, but dark grey, brown, black. There's no colouring, no windows, no lights apart from that green, luminous.
It must have freaked you out.
Oh yeah, but when I was just, I mean, I've always been interested, but to see, I was a boy, typical boy, used to take the Eagle comic and annual, always looking up the stars, but to see something physical when I was 18 or 19 is incredible. And I could never get an answer. I spent years trying to find out exactly how this worked, And now I find out that it can be worked. There's some space physicists in America, but they said to do that type of thing, you have to build something, again, the size of the hospital to make it work, let alone the size of the craft, So they're trying to miniaturize. So whoever did that obviously miniaturized the system of propulsion.
So the sky was dark,
Yeah. It was 6:30 in the middle of November.
So And what was the weather like? Cloudy?
It was like tonight. Actually, there's no rain.
We're not far off November now, are we? So.
Yeah. It'll be dark soon. In a couple of weeks. It will be dark. But there's no light pollution because we only had little bulbs pointing downwards. So when you walk 10 yards away, it was dark until you picked up the next lamp. So intriguing. Never did find an answer. So obviously, I could never find out if it was interdimensional or something that's like a super hyperdrive, but it didn't move.
Was there any sound?
No sound, nothing. It just juddered before it went. No movement. It was just like someone painted it on the sky. That's why I couldn't believe it when I was upstairs. That's why
it came down. Didn't move off. It just deteriorated.
No, it didn't. It didn't move. It didn't move. It didn't actually move. It juddered, but there was no sound. But you could feel something.
You say some motorists stopped and they got up. Can you remember what they did? What they said?
There was two cars, one coming down the lane, and because they were next to each other, it's a narrow road, and they just stopped there. There's hardly any other cars. It's a quiet time at 6:30 in the evening. You didn't get a lot of traffic, and they would just stand there looking at it. I don't think they mentioned anything. I mean, it was 50 odd years ago. I don't remember. One scratched his head and shook his shoulders and got in the car and drove off. I mean, these days you'd have your mobile phones and digital cameras going, but all I had was my 35mm slide camera.
I remember you telling me that when after it disappeared, you couldn't see the stars where it was. It was like a dark space.
5 seconds or so, if I remember right. Then it sort of came back, then you could see all the stars. So it was a clear night, But there's nothing. I've seen nothing since, and I don't know if anybody else seen something that large. Anyways, you could call it one of the close encounter, the fourth kind, maybe, I don't know. But it is was quite awe-inspiring to see that, you know, and you could see wherever it was. Some
you said
kind
it was
of
a big dark. It was a black desk, cigar shape. How were you able to see it against the dark sky then?
Well, it was darker. It was the way it was shaped. It was like cut out, as if it was painted. So
it was darker.
It wasn't
than the dark
quite
sky.
black. By 6:30, it was dark, but it wasn't black. This was darker than the sky. Yeah. Basically, and that's how that's why I ran downstairs, just to make sure it was what I was seeing. You know? And then these cars already stopped.
And it was the flashing lights on the hospital that attracted your attention in the first place.
Yeah, that they stopped. The flashing lights came on after I went out of my room and ran down the stairs. Time I got onto here, as I got to the lights, then they started flashing. But these guys must have seen it and stopped. Wondered why it was, and then they saw the craft. You know, so weird. But I never could get an explanation. I just assumed it was later on, after knowing what I know now, all the new techniques and advanced science, it possibly would be an interdimensional craft. You know, but how many people see one of those out there? You see lots of lights and metal objects and whooshing off in the sky, but this was not metal. There was, I don't know what it was made of, but it was no reflection. It was dark, with just that luminous green line that, you know, when you're trying to start the car and you know the red light is going, it looked like this was all of a sudden came green and then dematerialised.
So obviously, very early sighting as well, isn't it? You know, it's a very early sighting in years.
Yeah. Well, there was no one to talk about it.
And it can't be mixed up with anything else.
There was no one to mention it. I mean, I did mention to my parents. I think my father saw it, but they didn't really. It was like something come and gone. You know, that's it. Well, we don't know anything about it. That's it. There was no like places like you got Sufon and Ufon everywhere now. Ufon. There was no. There might have been in America. There's nothing, as far as I know, in this country. Might be dabbling in it, but they all thought UFO guys were nuts in those days anyway. We did too many Eagle comics, you know. But we know a lot more better now, I suppose. But yeah, it stuck. That image stuck me. I mean, when you see something like that when you're in your teens, that stays with you for life. You know, that's a big sighting. You know, if nothing's. I mean, these days it might be explanation, but in 50 odd years ago, to see something that size dematerialise right in front of you is something. You know, it's not a digital makeup.
It's going to be about 1,000 foot across.
Yeah, it's big.
Didn't Doctor Who some years ago?